Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. President Andrzej Duda has sworn in the new cabinet of Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki. This is his third government in a row. Morawiecki now has 14 days to present his government programme and win a vote of confidence in the Sejm, Poland's lower house of parliament. But with the Sejm dominated by the opposition, his chances are slim. Over half the new government are women. Izabela Antos now leads the Prime Minister's office. Dorota Bojemska is the Minister for Family and Social Policy, and Marzena Małek heads the Ministry of State Assets. The Ministry of Funds and Regional Policy will be led by Małgorzata Jarosińska-Jedynak. She will oversee climate and environment, while Anna Łukaszewska-Trzeciakowska will handle the same portfolio but in terms of culture and national heritage specifically. Anna Gębicka will work on agriculture, and Danuta Dmowska-Andrzejok will focus on sport. The Ministry of Health will be headed by Ewa Krajewska. Paweł Szefczak became the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Administration, while Krzysztof Szczucki took on the role of Minister of Education and Science. Andrzej Kostanawiak was appointed as Minister of Finance, Alvin Gajadur as the Minister of Infrastructure, and Jacek Ozdoba as Secretary of State in the Prime Minister's office. Mariusz Błaszczak will continue his mission as Minister of Defence. Congratulations, and I am very pleased. We are fulfilling a political and constitutional custom by appointing a Polish government that is formed by a candidate put forward by the grouping, the political camp that won the elections. Earlier today, the leader of the Law and Justice Party, Jarosław Kaczyński, openly admitted that a cabinet partly composed of experts is his idea. This is my brainchild. The aim is to avoid having too many politicians in this government. However, Minister Błaszczak could be considered. Our objective is to suggest fresh faces and a precise plan to the Sejm, the President and society. It is essential to rectify the media's claim that prominent law and justice politicians are unwilling to join the Prime Minister Morawiecki's new administration. This is a complete falsehood. In fact, we had the opposite scenario. Law and Justice won the majority of votes in the election, but they lost their parliamentary majority, gaining just 194 seats in the Sejm, the 460-seat lower house of parliament, after 8 years in power. If Morawiecki doesn't win a vote of confidence in the Sejm, the opposition leader Donald Tusk is likely to form a new government made up of at least 10 different parties that ran together in the October elections in 3 umbrella groups, but which have pledged to work together. Interior ministers from 6 European Union countries, Poland, the Czech Republic, Hungary, Slovakia, Austria and Germany, agreed to step up efforts to protect the bloc from illegal immigration and to target groups of human smugglers that operate on its borders. Some of them objected to the mandatory EU migrant relocation scheme and demanded an end to the current migration policy. 2 years ago, migrants attacked the Polish-Belarusian border. Back then, the mainstream media tried to convince the public that those were women and children who sought help. After a breaking story published by Gazeta Wyborcza, it turns out that journalists knew they were not being truthful. Konrad Chmioło of Telewizja Republika has more. Writing for Gazeta Wyborcza, sociologist and writer Małgorzata Tomczak admitted she had created false knowledge regarding the events at the Polish-Belarusian border. The migration crisis on the Polish-Belarusian border has been continuing since 2021. For 2 years, left liberal media described the actions of the Polish government as inhumane and the actions of the border guard as inconsistent with asylum law. Columnist and sociologist Małgorzata Tomczak stated that such conclusions submitted in the newspaper were manipulated. After 2 years of writing about migration and the crisis at the border, I have no doubt that we are generating false knowledge. We have been building such a narrative about the migration crisis in Poland for over 2 years, and in Europe for almost a decade, in opposition to the right-wing discourse. Images of groups of men on boats and young boys crossing the border fence are terrifying, so we move the lens in search of a defenceless mother and child. The newspaper misinformed about the migration crisis, a hybrid operation. It was a long-term and deliberate process. When left liberal activists argued at the beginning of the crisis that refugees were behind the mass migration to the European Union, experts were sure that they were economic migrants controlled by the Kremlin. Due to the migration crisis that has been continuing in Europe on and off since 2015, the United Right government decided to hold a nationwide referendum on the date of the parliamentary elections. 2 of the 4 questions related to migration. The media downplayed and discredited the referendum. It is possible that their goal was to bring about political changes in Poland. The border guard has been reporting on what is happening on the Polish-Belarusian border for months. 25,000 for several months. They have been attacking us with stones. These are not refugees, they are migrants. According to international reports, Russia and Belarus deliberately brought migrants to the Polish-Belarusian border. The vast majority of people on the routes to Europe are young men. Last year, women constituted only 10% and children 17%, many of them 16 to 17 years old. We say that right-wing propaganda distorts the image of migration by not showing children and women, but we do the same, except that statistics are on their side. We do the same with their reason and purpose for leaving. To do the right-wing, they are migrants, we answer, no, they are refugees. As Małgorzata Tomczak stated in Gazeta Wyborcza, the Daily misinformed its readers about the situation at the border. As the content of the article shows, readers of the Gazeta Wyborcza were deliberately misled for 2 years. Małgorzata Tomczak's superiors were allegedly responsible for the disinformation. There were requests to omit certain facts, gently adding others, suggesting something to improve the emphasis of the text. Could I cut out the sentence that the migrant was wealthy and paid €12,000 for the journey? After all, it's grist to the mill for the right wing. Could I please delete this paragraph? It could harm the Ada movement. This matter cannot be swept under the carpet. Left-wing media manipulate reality and lie to harm other entities of public discourse. Gazeta Wyborcza, TVN, after all, they all relied on the same data. The problem of illegal migration on the Polish-Belarusian border was presented in the film The Green Border. However, the reality shown by Agnieszka Holland was manipulated and the work of the border guard was presented in an extremely negative light. In connection with the premiere of Agnieszka Holland's film and in the face of numerous media publications slandering Polish border guard officers, the Stand Behind Those Wearing the Polish Uniform campaign was created on a social initiative. Extreme weather arrived in Ukraine as tens of thousands of troops manned frontline positions in the 20-month-old war with Russia amid fears Moscow could attack the power grid with airstrikes this winter. Kiev residents said harsh weather conditions did not bother them much, but that they were more worried about soldiers on the front line. A severe snowstorm injured 13 people in Ukraine's southern Odessa region, causing power outages in more than 1,600 villages and towns across the country and forcing authorities to close over a dozen motorways to vehicles, officials said. It's just regular weather. What's more important is keeping the boys warm in the trenches. We will survive it here. We are not scared by the snow. We come from Kherson. We have been friends for 25 years, so when we meet, we are not scared by any type of weather. The weather is great. It is up to us how we see the weather, not the weather that makes us feel a certain way. I'm a volunteer. We help soldiers. We cook hot lunches for them, hot tea. We cheer them up with our support. We provide them with all we have. We support them with care. We always remind them that we stand with them, that we love them and wait for them to come back. My husband serves in the army. We adore them. We adore our boys. I start crying when I think about soldiers. It is hard to imagine what it feels like there. These are very heavy thoughts. 3/4 of Poles feel that the Ukraine war threatens the safety of their country, according to a recent study by CBOS. Only 19% held the opposite opinion. Among those viewing the war as a risk to Poland, 29% believed it was definitely a threat, while 45% deemed it somewhat of a threat. The number of people who thought that the threat was prevalent increased from 67% in October to 74% this month. This goes against a previously observed trend of declining numbers. Women, 76%, and older respondents, 77% of the oldest age group, were more likely to perceive the threat compared to men, 71%, and younger participants, 66% of those aged 25 to 34. CBOS found that more people are in favour of accepting refugees from Ukraine, with 62% of the public expressing their support in November, an increase from 57% the previous month. Furthermore, only 33% of those surveyed said that they or someone in their household had helped Ukrainian refugees, which is a decrease from the 63% reported in April. Israel and Hamas have agreed to extend their truce in the Gaza Strip for an additional 2 days, allowing for further exchanges of Israeli hostages for Palestinian prisoners and opening the door for more humanitarian aid to flow into the embattled enclave, a Qatari official said on Monday. Mayed al-Ansari, spokesperson for the Qatari Foreign Ministry, announced the agreement to extend the temporary ceasefire for an additional 2 days in Gaza under the same conditions as the previous truce. The extension comes on what would have been the last day of the previously negotiated hostages for prisoner swaps between Israel and Hamas, mediated by Qatar and other parties. According to reports, Hamas is expected to release 11 more Israeli hostages, including 2 mothers and 9 children, in the 4th exchange for Palestinians held by the Israelis. Since the original truce went into effect at 7 a.m. on the 24th of November, Hamas has already released dozens of Israeli women and children, some of them dual nationals, in 3 batches. That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.